Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
So good to see you all.
Let's have a seat, everyone. There's not so many people here.
We're a very schmoozy group. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. Oh, come on in.
Ready?
I'm so ready.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. We start with Yalla la 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 Yalla la 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 yalla la 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 yalla la 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 yalla la yalla la yalla la 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 yalla la yalla la yalla la 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 yalla la 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 Shabbat Shalom Shabbat Shalom Shabbat Shalom Shabbat Shalom. One more time. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
For those of you who are joining us at home, we've got a nice percussion section over here. We're really jamming out. It's so good to be with all of you and to hear your voices in song. So on Wednesday services, Wednesday afternoons in our Hebrew school, Raymond is one of our teachers there, we always begin our time together. I always ask students to do a little bit of a check-in. And so they always, if you've had a great week, they give a thumbs up. If they've had a medium, like fat week, we do a thumbs in the middle. And then if it's been, one of those rough weeks, they do a thumbs down. And then we, chat a little bit about how have our weeks been. And so I thought that we could do a little bit of Hazarat HaShavua. This is a review of our week, thinking back to what happened starting on Sunday and going through each of our days, and really thinking about what were the joys from this past week that we want to hold on to and really cling to on this Shabbat. And what were some of the thumbs down moments that we just need to release and to let go of? And so we're going to take just 1 minute in silence to take a couple of moments to review our weeks so that we can really figure out what is it that we need as we enter this Shabbat. We're going to begin with our warm-up prayers. Yismechu Hashemayim is on the very bottom of page 13. Please join us.
Yalla la la yalla yalla la 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 yalla la 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 yalla la 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 yalla la 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 yalla la la try one more time. Yada da 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 yada da 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 yada da 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 Yismechu Hashamayim V'takel ha'aretz Yiram hayam Umelo Yismechu Hashamayim V'takel ha'aretz Yiram hayam
Page 20, Lecha Dodi. We're going to do verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. Page 20.
Ya la 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 lecha dodi. Ya la 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 likrat kala. Ya la 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 b'nei Shabbat. B'nei Shabbat nikavela. Shamor v'zachor. Peribor echad. Ishmianu el hamyuchad. Adonai echad. U'shemo echad. L'shem u'tiferet v'litila. Shabbat nekavela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha. Ki mekor habracha. Merosh mikedem nesucha. Sof ma'aseh v'machshava techila. Ya la 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 lecha dodi. Ya la 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 likrat kala. Ya la 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 b'nei Shabbat. B'nei Shabbat nekavela.
Top of 21.
Hitoreri, hitoreri, kiva ore, kumi ori, 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 shir daveri, kevod Adonai, alayik miglai. Ya la la ya la 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 lecha dodi. Ya la 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 likrat kala. Ya la 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 b'nei Shabbat. B'nei Shabbat nekavela.
We rise, bottom of 21. Face the entrance.
Boi veshalom, ateret bala, gam besimcha, uvetzola, toch emunei, am segula, boi Ya la 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 b'nei Shabbat, b'nei Shabbat nekavela.
We're going to continue standing. And when we think about prayer, there are sort of two different categories of how we're supposed to understand prayer. The first is called keva. This is the fixed component of the service. And so on Friday nights, we just went through all of our warm-up prayers. They're meant to get us in this space to warm up our bodies and to warm up our souls and really to put us in the frame of gratitude. And then we arrive at the Baruch Hu, and this is sort of your, shaking you awake a little bit. Are you here? Are you showing up? Are you present in this moment, not whatever happened 20 minutes before, or what you're worried about or looking forward to in a few days from now, but really, are we here and present together? And then throughout the service, we go through various themes and prayers that we recite every Shabbat, and really a whole structure for our everyday service. And this is meant to provide a container and really a sense of safety that we know what to expect and we can prepare for this rehearsal of a set of values. And then our tradition says we're also supposed to have what's called kavanah. And this is really the intention. This is what's the frame of mind that we're bringing into this space? What is the sort of heart-centered way that we're seeing these prayers? How are we putting ourselves, not just seeing it as the tradition, but how are we really putting ourselves into the tradition and owning this experience and owning it together? And so as we pray the Baruch Hu, again, saying, we're all here together, wake up. This is where you are. There's nowhere else you need to be right now. I just wonder, what is the intention that each of us wants to bring to this space and to this Shabbat? What is it that we want to get out of this prayer experience and out of this community? And so we're going to join together in these words on page 28.
Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Yalalai, 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 Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed, le'olam va'ed. Yalalai, 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 yalalai,
Bottom of 31. This is an hour of change. Within it, we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. Do we have a family of deers?
It's the
davening deer.
There we go.
They've come to daven.
We have some deers who have joined us in our prayer service. You all can go see.
I think,
Absolutely.
I think they liked the music. And
Yes, they were comforted. They were brought in by our space together. We're just going to take a deer break. Everyone just sit with us for a moment. There you go. I know. Well, look, in Jewish tradition, when you see something miraculous, right? Some people say, Ma gadlu ma'asecha, yeah, right? Like, how beautiful are God's creations. And so how wonderful it is that we have some of God's creations who are, helping to make our minyan tonight. We are going, let's continue together on the top of page 33. Let's read together. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its
Its
mystery
mystery
beckons,
beckons,
yet I struggle with
with
its truth.
truth.
You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Vaed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Vaed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levonecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha v'beitecha u'v'lechtecha v'derech u'shochbecha u'kumecha u'kshartam leot ayadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim le'elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem.
On the top of 39. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. Let's sing together this prayer of hope that we all may experience that feeling of freedom, the top of page 40.
We add the words Micha Mocha Ba'eli Adonai Mika Mocha Nedar V'Kodesh Nora Tehilot Oseh Fele Nora
going to join together on our supplemental page in words of Hashkivenu. As we just finished our holiday of Sukkot a little while ago, we think of this image of a Sukkat Shlomecha, this shelter of peace. We know that the sukkah is not a permanent structure. In fact, it's very vulnerable, right? It really shows the cracks and the fragility of our human experience, but it also has that feeling of safety and of warmth. And so as we're sitting under this, beautiful tent tonight or wherever you are at home, we think about those places and those people that make us feel like we have a Sukkat Shalom, a shelter or a structure that contains us and that really gives us a feeling of wholeness and peace. And so we're going to join together in these beautiful words, Hashkivenu, the supplemental page. That was Raymond, one of our religious school teachers who clearly has other talents other than teaching religious school. I'm really glad that you're with our community tonight. We are going to prepare for our Amidah, for our standing prayer. This is meant to be our conversation with God. It could be our conversation with ourselves. And we'll join together in these words on page 46. I invite you to please rise.
Adonai, Sefatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagi Tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekoneh Hakol, Vezocher Haste Avot Ve'imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei Vneihem, Leman Shemo Be'ava, Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Bezrat Sarah. Atah gibor leolam Adonai, Mechaye hakol atah, Rav lehoshia. Mashiv haruach, Umorid hagashem. Mechakel chaim bechesed, Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim. Somech noflim berofech holim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato lishenei afar. Micha mocha ba'al gevurot, Umidol melach, Melech memit umechaye, Umpatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'emanata lachayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom, Yehalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
We just transitioned in the Givorot to Mashiv Haruach Umorid Hagashem. We are calling upon the winds and the rains, and clearly our prayers are very effective because just as we moved to these prayers after Simchat Torah, this past week we had a thunderstorm. So never doubt. We are going to continue in silence with the Amidah through page 62. You can follow along the words of the prayer book or take some quiet prayer for yourself and be seated when you are ready.
On page 60 are the words to Shalom Rav. May we be granted abundant peace in every season and in every moment. I'm sorry. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Try it again. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon, lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon, lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha, tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol heit uvechol shah bishlomecha. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Tasim leolam.
I don't know about many of you, but I have heard that being on an airplane is not so fun recently. Have we had people who have flown recently? Yeah? Yeah? Okay. Well, that is definitely a tragedy. And there was no peanuts for those at home. Yes. In fact, though, there was an article featured in the Atlantic several months ago that attempted to chronicle the deterioration of civility in our skies. A Southwest flight attendant lost 2 teeth after a passenger punched her in the face. A Delta flight had to be diverted after a passenger threatened to take the plane down. Arguments over seats, over masks, over overhead compartment spaces has led to some airlines even delaying bringing back alcohol sales for fear of the added danger posed by drunken passengers. And though airports and airplanes are often a microcosm for society at its worst, we know that this situation is not much different in other commercial spaces. Throughout the pandemic, we have witnessed videos of incensed anti-maskers screaming, throwing things, assaulting employees at grocery stores, impatient or even hostile patrons at a restaurant, so much so that a restaurant in Cape Cod shut down, literally, for a day of kindness to recover from the overwhelming torrent of rude customers. And though we'd like to think that it's just those awful people who are behaving this way, it's probably likely that many of us have not been our best selves when forced to wait in long lines at the pharmacy or the doctor's office or the carpool line at school, when our impatience or frustration or indifference has led us to be curt with the grocery store clerk or the Postmate driver, or even just neglect looking the assistant at the doctor's office in the eye and asking them how they're doing. This question of how we regard one another is at the heart of this week's parashah, Noach. Upon first glance, the story of Noah seems like a perfectly lovely children's tale with animals going 2 by 2 and a super cool ark. Heck, there's even the Noah's Ark Museum just around the corner. But when we delve deeper into the text, the story of Noah poses some problematic questions. After all, what could humanity have done that was so bad that it warranted God wiping out all living creatures? And for that matter, what kind of God destroys the world under any circumstances? Well, the Torah has sort of an answer for both of these questions. In Genesis chapter 6, the Torah states that the earth became corrupt before God. The earth was filled with violence, and when God saw how corrupted the earth was, how all flesh was acting in a corrupt way upon the earth, God takes action. Biblical scholar Tikma Fryer-Kensky notes that the Hebrew word used here, Hamas, encompasses almost the entire spectrum of evil in the Bible, and that after the flood, God creates prohibitions regarding bloodshed, which may suggest that the intensity of the violence amidst the people was the cause of God's grave action. Yet we might also learn something about God and God's intentions from the very end of our previous Torah portion, from Bereshit, which introduces the tale of Noah. Because here, the text states, "When Adonai saw how great was the wickedness of human beings in the earth, that the direction of their thoughts was nothing but wicked all the time, Adonai regretted having made human beings on earth and was heartsick." God was heartsick. Now that's a pretty powerful statement. For though the text gives no indication here of humanity's crime, stating only that their hearts bent toward evil at every moment of every day, a significant clue can be found in the verse that literally God's heart was sorrowing. God was grieving for and perhaps with humanity. And this introduces us to a very different God, one whose heart can break when God sees that humanity is acting cruelly towards one another. For according to our tradition, God creates humanity in the divine image. And so when human beings betray one another, when human beings harm one another, when human beings undermine the dignity of one another at the airport, in the grocery store, in the carpool line, it's not only we who suffer. Rather, maybe God suffers alongside us, heartsick over the behavior of God's divine creatures. Though I'm not suggesting that our society is akin to the people at the time of Noah, and while I'm certainly not in favor of a God who destroys, I do wonder what the God of the Bible would have to say about us now. And I'm pretty sure that God would be distraught over the way that we treat each other. When my husband went to the grocery store a few days ago, he casually asked the cashier how he was doing. And with tears welling up in his eyes, the clerk shared how he had been viciously berated for 10 minutes by a frustrated customer who had to wait in line for a minute or two while he left his station to help someone locate a hard-to-find item. Simply asking how he was doing was the greatest kindness that this grocery store worker experienced all day. So many of us are constantly at our thresholds, just managing to get by. And it can be all too easy to forget the sanctity of humans when we see so many daily, especially when we need something from the people that we encounter. But our tradition cautions us that disregarding or undermining or creating violence with our actions or with our words against anyone has larger consequences than we can possibly imagine. God is crying out in pain for our world. Are we able to hear it? Life itself already comes with so much pain and suffering that's an essential part of our existence. Our job is not to add to it through moments of carelessness or selfishness, but to help heal it through moments of kindness and empathy. As Noah discovered, the stakes of our everyday interactions are high. We're not asked to be perfect, but we are asked to notice the humans standing before us, not only in our sanctuaries, but in our everyday mundane spaces as well. Because then we can reach out toward one another, fulfilling our sacred obligation to make this world more whole and to make this world more at peace. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this be God's will, and may we all enact God's will in this world that desperately needs each of us. As we move into our Mishaberach prayer, this is one of the ways that we honor our humanity and one another's humanity by acknowledging that there are people in our midst, that there are people, even ourselves, who are deeply suffering, and that we often have no idea what's going on with someone else. And so that our default should be to be kind, because everyone is fighting something or struggling with something. And so as we recite our Mishaberach prayer tonight, I want to invite you to share the name of a loved one, someone in your world, in your sphere, who is struggling, whom you want to offer this prayer for healing. And then together as a community, we will pray together for their full healing, their healing of their body and their mind and their spirit. So if you have someone you'd like to share, I want to invite you to please rise. Shoshi Purcellin. We're going to join together in words of healing for our community, for one another, for this world, in the middle of page 253.
Mi shebehera avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mi shebehera imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Aleinu can be found on 282. Please rise.
Alenu leshabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula leotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoye haratzot, verlo samanu kemishbechot adama, shelo samchelkenu kahem, vegor alenu kechol hamonam, vanachnu korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר ואדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד, ושמו אחד, ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. Words to prepare us for Mourner's Kaddish on the top of 291. These are words from Rabbi Richard Levy, Zichrono Livracha. It is hard to sing of oneness when the world is not complete, when those who once brought wholeness to our life have gone, and not but memory can feel the emptiness their passing leaves behind. But memory can tell us only what they were in company with those we loved. It cannot help us find what each of us alone must now become. Yet no one is really alone. Those who live no more echo still within our thoughts and words, and what they did is part of what we have become. We do best homage to our dead when we live our lives more fully, even in the shadow of our loss. For each of our lives is worth the life of the whole world, and each one is the breath of the ultimate one. And affirming the one, we affirm the worth of each one whose life, now ended, brought us closer to the source of life. in whose unity no one is alone, and every life finds purpose. As we recite Kaddish this Shabbat, we especially remember Arthur Breakstone, Florence Donner, Benjamin Emanuel, Max Fenster, Helen Friedman, Dr. John Grenner, Sheila Hutman, Hyman Jack Kesden, Ned Keibel, Reuben Klamer, Robert David Lazarus, Hannah Lewin, Laura Neiman, Jane Ortner, Peggy Ransom, Scott Rich, Alexander G. Silberstein, George Solomon, and Winifred White. If there are other names that we should add, or if I mispronounce the name of your loved one, I invite you to please share their name at this time. We also think of those who have perished as innocent victims of violence in a world that is filled with far too much violence. And we also think of those who have died protecting our country and our people's ancient home. We join together as a community in words of Mourner's Kaddish on page 294. And if you're able, I invite you to please rise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'amad ivrach yiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, b'chayachon uv'yomechon uv'chayeh dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam ulamei amaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yiramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha barechu, le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'amav v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru, amen. Zichronam levracha, may their memories truly be a blessing.
Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru, amen. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ve'imru, amen. Ve'imru, amen. One last time, ve'imru, amen.
Shabbat Shalom, wishing you a Shabbat of peace and of kindness. So good to be with all of you.